Yes, so I think the title of the talk is was it Just Stop Oil? Just Stop Oil. Don't know much about them. The title of the talk is Just Stop Oil. What next? So that's quite an easy question after this week. So the answer to what next is revolution. Okay, so that's that. So I thought we'd talk about the situation for a bit, and then talk about resistance. I'm going to give a sort of general overview, and then I'm going to pass over to Indigo, who's going to talk about the plans for Just Stop Oil over the next few months. So, the situation. I'm sure we all know the situation, don't we? But I'm still going to talk about it. So last week, it was on the headlines, I think it was headline in The Guardian, the AMOC current is going to change around 2050, maybe 2025. Does anyone know about this? They said it's going to create climate chaos. So what it actually means is that at some point before 2050, the currents are going to change in the North Atlantic, and temperatures in Europe are going to collapse overnight between 3 and 8 degrees. 8 degrees centigrade overnight. So, as some of you may know, I used to be a farmer. So I think if you went to Wales, where I used to farm, and you said to a farmer, are you going to be able to grow food if the temperature collapses by 8 degrees? You know what they're going to say, right? Which is, good luck with that. Good luck with that. And George Monbiot wrote a nice euphemistic piece about it, and he said this could affect the rainfalls in the tropics. So I went on the link, and the scientific paper in section 3.2.1, feel free to look it up, says that when the AMOC changes, it will reduce rainfall in India by 70%. It will reduce the monsoon by 70%. It didn't say it could, it said it would. It would reduce rainfall in India by 70%, which of course is an estimate, so it could be a lot more, right? And it's an average, which means 1 year in 4, it'll be 90%. So what all these articles didn't want to mention is that this is going to cause mass starvation, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. But they didn't say that. The title in The Guardian said it's going to create climate chaos. Who gives a fuck about climate chaos, right? They should have put it's going to create mass starvation in the British Isles in the next 25 years. Then maybe something would have happened, right? So what does starvation mean? Oh, that's going to create starvation. Oh dear. Let's leave it like that. But let's not leave it like that. Let's just do what happens in academia quite a lot, which is to actually study starvation. So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was a mass starvation episode in Russia in 1921. 10 million Russians died. And guess what happened? There was mass cannibalism, wasn't there? When did the climate movement last talk about cannibalism? Yeah, it's sort of a joke. Sort of isn't it? Like I was talking to a researcher the other day, he said, you have to understand, Roger, that starvation means you see your animals die, then you see your children die, and then you die. In other words, like starvation is the imposition of an astronomically evil form of suffering imposed upon millions of people. It's a crime beyond crimes to make people starve. And I've been on a few hunger strikes, I can tell you, not eating is hell. So we could leave it there, couldn't we? That was a little bit upsetting, but we could leave it there. But let's not leave it there. Let's talk about Adolf Eichmann. So while I was in prison, I read Eichmann in Jerusalem. You might know this guy. He was a Nazi. And he was responsible for transporting the Jews and other groups to the concentration camps. And he was on trial. And you know what he said? He said, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with me. I was just responsible for transporting these people. I didn't kill them. I wasn't responsible. The bit that I did was just the transport. I was following the law. I was following orders, right? So in 10 years' time, when the oil executives are taken to court by the next generation, and they will be, you know what they're going to say? I was just responsible for putting carbon into the atmosphere. I wasn't responsible for deliberately starving millions of people. And you know what the next generation's going to say? Bollocks! Right? The Israelis found him guilty and they hanged him. This is not a technical situation. It is a project of mass death imposed upon hundreds of millions of people by the elites. That's what's going on. And if you know this is happening, you have no choice but to enter into resistance. You don't enter into resistance because of climate change. You enter into resistance because you know the elites that rule this country are imposing torture and death on tens of millions of people by digging up more oil in the North Sea. That changes everything, doesn't it? That changes everything. If it's just climate change, sign the petition, yeah? If your rulers are destroying the lives of millions of innocent people, you have to fucking rebel. Otherwise, what are you here for? What are you here for? What sort of person are you if you do not enter into resistance on the basis of the obscenity of what is happening now? So that brings us to resistance, right? Let's look at resistance. Last November, the police came to my house, arrested me for making a speech, and put me in prison. 50 people were put into prison that weekend. The guy next to me, he was in tears in prison, right? I put my arm around him and I said to him, this is our life now. This is our life now. And he came round and said, yeah, it is, isn't it? When you enter into resistance, you expect to be put into prison. It was fine with me because I've been to prison many times. This is your future. right? Half the people in this room will be going to prison in the next 10 years, whether you think you're going or not. Think about it. You're 1% of the Green Gathering, which is half of 1% of the people in the UK, right? You're the people that have come into this room. You'll be going to prison. And my advice is accept it. Accept you're going to be going. I didn't want to go to prison, by the way. I just made a 20-minute speech. I wasn't asking to go to prison. They put me in prison for 4 months for making a speech because that's where we're up to with this regime. If they're going to murder hundreds of millions of people in the global south, do you think they're going to have a problem putting a Welsh farmer in prison for making a 20-minute speech? Do you think they're going to have a problem knocking on your door in 2 years' time, going, oh, you went to see a talk by Roger Hallam. We know your file. You're going to prison. So if you want to leave now, see how that works? You see, the future is not going to be like the past. I spent a long time studying what resistance looks like. So I have the benefit of knowing the psychology of resistance. The psychology of resistance is to accept that what is happening to you has to happen for you to maintain your integrity. And a few years ago, I did a talk to some elite students in London, which was a complete waste of time, right? Because I told them about the psychology of resistance. I said, I'm going to give you 3 examples, right, of the psychology of where many of you are going to find yourselves in the next decade. First of all, in the independence struggle in Kenya, many of the rebels got tortured by the British, right? And there was a story of these guys, they were caught and they were going to be tortured, but they were calm because they knew the British were going to torture them, because they knew what the British were capable of doing. So they were calm because they expected it, right? They weren't resistant because they expected it to happen. Can you imagine that? And there was an anthropologist I read about who went to a tribe in Burma, and they were getting invaded by the Japanese, and they knew they had to go to war. And this tribe had a ceremony, and they put on their war costumes, they put on their paint and all the rest of it. There was no crying, there was no drama, because they knew this was what life demanded of them. This is what life means, that sometimes you have to put your life on the line. That's what life means. So they calmly went through the ceremony. And in the Second World War, there's this guy, I can't remember, he wrote this book called Life and Fate. And it was all about the Russians on the Eastern Front. And the tank drivers were going into battle, right? And they were all calm because they knew they were going to die. They'd accepted it. So they were calm. So what I'm trying to say to you all is there's another side to your fear. There's another side to all that drama in your head that this guy, Roger Hallam, is telling you you have to go into resistance, and you're scared and you're traumatized and all the rest of it. There's another side of calmness, right? If after this talk the police appear there and they take me to prison for 4 months, I'm calm. Because I expect it. Because we're dealing with a regime that is destroying the lives of millions of people now. This is nothing about the green movement, right? It's nothing about environmentalism. It's about fucking evil. That's what we're talking about. That's why Just Stop Oil is the #1 campaign in the UK, because it's full of people that have got it into their heads, this is a totally fucked situation. And they're not going to stand for it. something else about resistance. The most important thing we have to understand, right, is we have to act with integrity. This movement is full of people trying to work out how to be effective. That's not the issue. The question is, how do I act with integrity in my life given the fuckery that's going on? That's it. That's the number one question. And it's quite interesting that the new Statesman said that I'm the 34th, believe it or not, most influential progressive person in the UK. Well done, I know. All these people sent me emails saying, only number 34. It's really stressful. The point is why did that happen? Because for the last 6 years, people have said to me, oh, Roger, if you say that, you're going to make yourself irrelevant. Oh, Roger, if you suggest that, no one's going to listen to you. Oh, Roger, if you said that, they're going to cancel you. And they did cancel me, right? You know what I mean? There's going to be someone outside the door saying, you mustn't mention the Holocaust. Oh, you mustn't talk about rape. Oh, you mustn't actually talk about reality. We just want to talk about a livable future. All that shit. You know what I mean? The reason I'm number 34 is because I talked to you about cannibalism. That wasn't supposed to be a joke. But what I'm trying to say to you is stop stressing about trying to be fucking effective. The most effective people are the people who don't give a shit about being effective. They're just going to go and fucking do it. Because it's wrong, isn't it? Right? And what I'm here to tell you, as an expert on effectiveness, strangely enough, is the more that you just go and fucking do it, the more effective you're going to be. Right? Relax. So let's talk about guilt. Gets better, doesn't it? Lots of people come into this tent and are going, oh my God, Roger Hallam's trying to get me to be arrested again. Oh, he's trying to get me to go to jail. Fucking hell, he never stops. Right, all that shit, right? What I'm here to tell you is the lucky ones, the smart ones of you, are going to end up in prison. The unsmart ones are going to stay in denial, stay in cognitive dissonance, and in 10 years' time, you're going to be crippled with guilt. You're going to be crippled with guilt. And I'm saying that as a sociologist, right? I'm not trying to give you a hard time. Honestly, right? Think about that film, what's it called? Schindler's List. You've seen the film? At the end, he cries because he's guilty. He feels guilty. He hasn't saved more Jews. Right? It's human to feel guilty. When people go off to war and people get shot, they come back and they got post-traumatic stress because they lived and the others died, right? You know the routine, right? You've seen it in the movies. In 10 years' time, you'll be crying at night because you think, what the fuck was I doing in 2023? What the fuck was I doing? Right? There's hundreds of millions of people starving in India. The smart move is to enter into resistance now because at least you have done something. That's what counts. We don't know whether we're going to win. Who gives a fuck? Right? We're going to go into resistance because it's fucking the right thing to do. Isn't it? Who cares? Oh, getting quite enthusiastic, aren't I? I thought, oh, I'm just going to do a calm speech. I did, honestly. I thought I was going to be really cool and calm and, oh, yeah. Okay, I've got 3 more minutes. Yeah, that's the tag. That's the frame. They go together. Everyone knows what a
These
tag
are
is,
the
don't they?
prison trousers.
And the prison trousers, yeah. I'm trying to be sustainable.
Chic.
Chic. Okay, so what's going on in the last week? What's gone on in the last week is humiliation, isn't it? Humiliation. Everyone in this room is working their bollocks off to actually get the world into some sort of decent state. And Rushki, whatever he's called, Sumac, whatever he's called, I never remember these people's names. I'm no good on names. Anyway, that guy, right? He comes along and says, we're going to max out on oil, isn't he? He's not just saying, oh, we're going to do a little bit of oil, or, oh, we're going to do a bit of oil. He's saying, we're going to fucking max out on it. We're just going to have loads of it. We're just going to destroy everything. Why is he saying that? Why is he saying that? Why is he humiliating us? Again, the reason he can humiliate us is because we're not doing what is necessary to stop him. Easy peasy, right? Do you know what I mean? I mean, everyone's going, oh, isn't it lovely? Greenpeace have put a few bits of black cloth over his house. What the fuck? This is mass fucking murder, right? Greenpeace should be initiating mass civil disobedience, shouldn't they? With 12 million fucking pounds a year, right? XR should be having a national emergency meeting saying everyone in XR has to fucking enter into resistance because what's happening is totally fucking disgusting. That's why he can humiliate us, because we're all soft. Right? It's not rocket science, right? Look at some history, right? You need to enter into resistance if you don't want to be humiliated. If you want to have a democratic society, do you all want a democratic society? Do you? Well, fucking make a line in the sand, right? This is what Democrats have done for 300 years. They go, if you cross that line, I will do whatever necessary to stop you. They don't go, oh, I'll just shuffle the line along a bit. You see how that works? People died for this democracy. People need to die in order to stop this fucking disaster happening. That's where we're at. It's not 1995 anymore, right? The last speaker was saying, oh, we've got 10 years. Fucking hell, no we haven't. We've got no years, okay? It's physics. It's locked in. Get a grip. Isn't it? See, he's laughing. Honestly, why isn't more people saying this? Some of you have to go off and say this shit, right? There's only about 2 or 3 people in the country saying this shit. Maybe just me. I don't understand why I come to festival after festival and everyone's fucking waffling. You have to do it. You have to get up in your groups and say, it's a fucking disaster. It's a fucking disaster. Honestly. Okay. Good news. Oh, God, I'm 5 minutes over, sorry. I'm just doing the theory bit, by the way. Indigo's going to bring you down to earth. Anyway, the good news is the regime is going to collapse. Okay? This regime is going to collapse. Whether we do anything or not. So that's all right, don't have to do anything. You see what I'm saying? So I'm doing a little project at the moment, one of my morbid projects, which is I go to academics and I say, if I put a gun against your head, that's a metaphor, by the way, okay, just in case the Daily Mail's here, right? I'm not literally going to put a gun against a person's head. I'm a Gandhi guy, remember, don't panic, right? Metaphorically, I'm going to put a gun against your head, and you've got to tell me how many 100 million climate refugees have to be before the world trading system collapses, which is a euphemism for no pensions. Okay? Just in case anyone's worried about their pension, it's gone, guys. Okay? Get a grip. Tell that to the lecturers, right? They should be out for climate, not their fucking pensions, right? Remember that one? Good. Anyway, so how many 100 million refugees do we need before we have the collapse of world capitalism, which apparently is a good idea according to the people that are destroying it, right? 200 million. That's my average at the moment. Like that means sort of 2030, maybe 2028. This global regime is committing suicide. It's destroying itself under its own criteria. You see what I'm saying? Well done with that. It's technology. I have to stop shouting. Anyway, so the key point here, right? The key point is, like, for 30 years we've been going like that, right? You know that feeling? Go up against the state, go up against the corporations, and you go, oh, that didn't work, right? At some point in the next 5 years, you're going to go, we're going to push through, and we're going to win. Great, we're going to win. The question is not whether we're going to win. We're definitely going to win. It's when. Correct. It's when. How many tipping points will have gone, right? So that means we have to be engaged in resistance now. I was going to finish on some high rhetoric, but I never quite manage it. But that's actually the end of my little talk. Thank you very much.